The baby wouldn't stop crying. The wind howled across the barren trail like a wounded wild beast, carrying dust motes of stinging metallic grit that burned Kaelen's eyes. He tightened his grip on the navigational controls of his sand skimmer, his plasma-powered hovercraft. His free hand clutched the bundle against his chest, a swaddled infant whose tiny sobs clawed at what was left of Kaelen's tattered soul. He rode into Redemption Hollow at sundown, a place that wore its name like a cruel joke. Shacks of ferroalloy leaned sideways, battered by time and energy blasts. Soot-streaked viewports stared like blind eyes, and everywhere the smell of plasma charge, synthetic sweat, and decaying synthetics. Kaelen's face was drawn, half hidden beneath the wide brim of his dust-hardened battle hat, shadowing a week's worth of unshaved stubble. His coat, once the color of deep alloy, now caked in trail grime and dried biofluid, not all his own, not all of it. He dismounted slowly in front of the General Synthetics store, knees stiff, exhaustion seeping from every joint. The baby stirred, let out a sharp wail that turned a few heads. Kaelen cleared his throat, hoping to muster dignity. Need synthetic nutrients? He rasped to the nearest man, a hefty bounty hunter with cracked knuckles and Reichel stimulant stains on his shirt. The man gave him a long look, then spat a glob of green fluid onto the ground. Ain't no synthetic nutrients here, Ranger. Try the ionized Cantina. Kaelen's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. He turned toward the Cantina, where electronic music stumbled through off-key notes and laughter crackled like bad power conduits. He pushed open the automated swinging doors, stepping into a world slick with energy liquor and stale heat. Faces turned. He was the outsider dust-smeared, wild-eyed, clutching a screaming infant like a gunfighter held a dying partner. What in the void's this? A voice called from the bar. Kaelen walked to the counter, each step stiff with pride and shame. My baby, he said. Ain't had synthetic nutrients in 2 days. The bartender, a wiry Zalorian with a crooked antenna mustache and cerulean skin, stared. We serve energy, liquor, not wet nurses. I got credits. Kaelen dropped 2 silver credits on the bar, the last of what he had. Anything. Powdered, canned, genetically modified beast milk, anything. Can't help you. The baby's cry pierced again, a sharp, desperate sound. Kaelen swallowed hard. A chromalite man nearby chuckled, his skin flickering through shifting hues like an electromagnetic dance. Mighty Bold showing up here with a whelp and no woman. Kaelen turned slow and dangerous. She died. The room went quiet for a beat, then the bartender gave a shrug. Ain't my business. Best take that child out of here before folks get ornery. Kaelen picked up the credits. One had biofluid on it he hadn't noticed before. He turned and left, the door slapped behind him like a verdict. Outside, the sun had sunk below the ridge, leaving a purplish glow that softened nothing. He leaned against his sand skimmer, heart hammering. The baby's cries were weakening, less fire, more fatigue that scared him worse than the hunger. I told her I'd take care of you, he muttered, but I don't know how. He pressed his lips to the baby's head. The skin was too hot. Someone had been watching. Rosalie Viridian, a Lyra-Elara with deep violet skin, long, shimmering silver hair, and elegantly pointed ears, stood just beyond the porch light of her bioapothecary station. Her hands in her skirt pockets, her eyes sharp and unflinching. She had the sort of face the plains couldn't erode: sturdy cheekbones, intelligent eyes, and a mouth that rarely smiled unless it meant it. Her body, sculpted with the curves of a stellar dancer, was accentuated by her simple, form-fitting biofiber garment. I've got nutrient fluid, she said. Kaelen spun, hand to his plasma pistol out of instinct. Then seeing her, he relaxed but didn't lower his guard. What kind of fluid? The kind your baby needs, she said plainly. And you can stop reaching for that weapon. I don't feed folks I have to shoot. I can pay. I didn't ask. She turned and walked inside. Kaelen stared after her, unsure whether he'd just been insulted or rescued. But when the baby whimpered again, he followed. Inside, the station smelled of synthetic lavender and worn pine, not like the outside world. Rosalie moved with quiet purpose, already pulling a rocking chair closer to the plasma hearth. She unwrapped a thick shawl, revealing a tunic that had been loosened, ready. Kaelen hesitated, frozen by the intimacy of the moment. I didn't mean for... Your baby needs to eat. She sat and held out her arms. Come here. He looked away as he handed the bundle over. He's not used to strangers. I'm not a stranger to hunger. She cradled the baby, shifted slightly, and began to nurse. The baby latched instinctively, greedily. The sound, that it came next, quiet sucking, then a contented sigh hit Kaelen like a plasma blast. He turned his face, jaw twitching. Rosalie's voice was soft. What's his name? Matthew, Kaelen said. She named him before. Rosalie nodded but didn't press. She looked down at the child with something akin to reverence. I lost one, she said. Kaelen met her eyes. They were clear, steady, holding more truth than he had heard in weeks. A year ago, she went on, stellar fever took him in 3 days. Buried him under the dendrite tree. I'm sorry. Folks say we shouldn't talk about it. Folks say a lot of things. They sat in silence, save for the crackle of the hearth and the baby's soft noises. You got family? She asked. No. Where you headed? Nowhere, just away from where we were. Rosalie nodded again. Her face betrayed no judgment, only understanding. When the baby finished nursing, she gently lifted him to her shoulder, patting his back with a practiced rhythm. A soft burp escaped. Kaelen couldn't look away. He didn't know why, but he said, I tried giving him water, even sugar water. Nothing worked. Thought he'd die before I got here. Babies need more than water, Rosalie said gently. They need warmth, touch. She looked at him. A mother's body can't be replaced, but sometimes it can be borrowed. Kaelen blinked hard, his throat hurt. She handed the baby back, who now lay quiet, drifting. Stay tonight, she said. I've got space in the loft, clean blankets. I don't want trouble. Trouble's already here. She turned to the viewport. You brought it with you. Kaelen stiffened. What do you mean? She didn't look at him. The sand skimmer you rode in on has a plasma graze near the flank. You've been running, Kaelen said nothing. And you carry like someone who's used that iron more than once. I don't want to, he said, voice low. Not anymore. Rosalie faced him then. Don't, he nodded slowly. His limbs were shaking now, not from fear but exhaustion. You're safe tonight, she said, but don't mistake this town for kind. It'll take what it can and spit the rest. I've seen worse. I doubt that. He climbed into the loft as the baby slept between them in a makeshift crib lined with synthetic lamb's wool. Rosalie returned to her chair and sat quietly, eyes lost in the hearth fire. Outside, the hum of a distant grav bike approached. A rider moved slow through the street, silhouetted against the moonlight. He paused near the station, his helmet tilted low. Rosalie's fingers curled into the arm of her chair. Kaelen noticed and stood, hand near his weapon. The rider didn't speak, didn't move, just watched, then turned his grav bike and vanished into the night like a ghost. Who was that? Kaelen asked. Rosalie's voice was a whisper. He's come back. Kaelen didn't press for more. The baby stirred in his sleep and Rosalie walked over, laying a hand gently on the child's chest until he calmed. The fire crackled, the night deepened. Somewhere a wool beast howled. And inside that station, between a woman who had lost everything and a man trying not to lose the last thing he had, silence settled, not peace, but something close. And that was enough to make Kaelen stay, for now. Dawn came soft and pale, seeping through the slats of the station and painting the room in slow golden strokes. Kaelen awoke to the smell of energy bread and the sound of soft humming notes caught between a lullaby and morning. He sat up slowly on the synthetic straw bed, muscles stiff from sleep, one hand instinctively reaching for the plasma pistol beside him. The baby Matthew lay nestled in a wool blanket at his side, warm and peaceful, chest rising in steady rhythm. For the first time in days, there was no cry to jolt him awake, just the quiet murmur of domestic life beyond the loft edge. Below, Rosalie moved with measured grace. She had tied back her silver hair, sleeves rolled, hands working energy dough on a worn wooden table. Light kissed the curve of her neck, the strength in her forearms. There was something solemn in her focus, as if making energy bread were a ritual, not a chore. Kaelen descended the ladder silently, boots soft against the rungs. He didn't want to break the moment, didn't want to admit he wasn't sure how to live in something this normal anymore. You sleep like a stone, Rosalie said without turning. Used to sleep with one eye open. You didn't need to. Still did. She nodded, wiped her hands on a cloth, and poured him synthetic coffee from a blackened tin pot. Ain't fresh, but it's strong. He took it, nodding his thanks. You always feed strangers like this? No, she said. But you ain't a stranger anymore. Matthew stirred, and Rosalie instinctively moved to take him. Kaelen held back. Let me. She watched as he cradled the child, gentle but awkward. You never done that before, have you? No need, we thought we had time. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. Loss wore a face everyone recognized. By mid-morning, Kaelen stepped outside to tend the sand skimmer. The sky was weeding and merciless, stretching across the plain like a challenge. As he worked, a rider on a mechanical Drakon rode into view, kicking up a loose tail of dust. Kaelen narrowed his eyes. The rider's posture was too deliberate, his path too straight. Rosalie came out, wiping her hands on her apron. Her breath hitched as she recognized the man. It's Krax, she said, her voice flat, but Kaelen caught the faint tremor. Krax grim fang, a massive Drakon with leathery, scarred skin the color of mottled gray-green rock and eyes like burning embers, reined in his mechanical Drakon with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He dismounted slowly, arms wide, mockingly casual. Well, look what crawled back, he growled. Rosie, darling, ain't you a sight? Don't call me that. Krax's grin widened, revealing rows of jagged teeth. He glanced at Kaelen, then at the baby in his arms. Now this is new. Didn't know you'd taken in strays. Kaelen stepped forward. You got business here? Krax chuckled, a rough guttural sound. I'm just visiting a lady I used to know, though it seems she's moved on to war veterans with baggage. Kaelen's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Rosalie's voice was ice. What do you want, Krax? I heard a familiar name's been snooping around Redemption Hollow. Thought I'd verify the rumors. He turned his attention back to Kaelen. Kaelen, wasn't it? Rode with Flint Blight in the range dispute 3 winters back. Kaelen didn't blink. I rode, then I stopped. They say you didn't stop soon enough. They say you ignited the fire that burned down Elder Greymark's settlement with his children inside. That's a lie. Perhaps. Perhaps not. The point is, memories linger. This town might overlook some transgressions, but not murder and children. Rosalie stepped between them. That's enough, Krax. Krax tipped his helmet slow and mocking. Be seeing you, Rosie. And you, Kaelen, don't get too comfortable. He mounted his mechanical Drakon and rode off, leaving the echo of engine hum and suspicion in his wake. Kaelen exhaled sharply. You know him well? Well enough to know he doesn't show up unless he wants something. What did he want today? She looked at him. To ensure the past never stays buried. That night, tension hung in the station like smoke. Rosalie nursed the baby again, her expression unreadable. Kaelen paced near the viewport, ears straining for any sound beyond the wind. You didn't kill those children, did you? She asked quietly. No, she nodded once. I believe you. I was there when it happened, he admitted, but I tried to stop it. Flint wouldn't listen. By the time I got the children out, the roof was already coming down. Only one made it. Is that why you ran? I didn't run. He looked at her sharply, then sighed. I left. Couldn't look their mother in the eye after that. Rosalie gently rocked Matthew. You're not the first man to try to outrun guilt. I ain't outrunning it, he said. I carry it like a damn saddle. She looked up. You'll have to let go of it eventually. Maybe, but not today. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't hostile. It was the kind of quiet that made room for understanding. Outside, footsteps crunched on techno-gravel, then voices low, angry. Kaelen and Rosalie froze. He moved toward the door, hand on his weapon. Don't shoot unless you have to. He nodded. They slipped outside into the darkness. 3 men stood in front of the cantina, talking in hushed tones. Krax was among them, one holding an energy rifle. They're stirring trouble, Kaelen said. They'll come here next. We should leave. No, Rosalie's voice was hard. This is my home. I'm done running too. The next morning, a digital wanted flyer was projected onto the public transmission pole outside the Peacekeeper's office. Kaelen's face flickered there, worn and hollow. Above bold letters, Wanted, Kaelen, 500 credits, dead or alive. Kaelen stood frozen. Rosalie stepped beside him. Where'd they dig that up? He asked. Does it matter? He looked at her. I should go. I'm putting you and Matthew in danger. She shook her head. You're not leaving. Not like this. I won't be the reason you lose everything again. You're not. I ain't worth dying for. Rosalie looked him straight in the eye. That baby thinks you are. And I'm starting to think the same. Something in his chest cracked, not pain, not quite hope, just the slow grind of a man changing. Back at the station, Matthew cried again, not desperate this time, just hungry. Rosalie reached for him, but Kaelen stepped in. I got him. She watched as he cradled the child, rocking with a rhythm he hadn't known he possessed. What if I can't protect him? He asked. You will, she said, because you care enough to try. They stood there quiet but not alone. Outside, the wind carried dust and the scent of trouble, but inside, for now, there was warmth. There was energy, bread cooling on the table. A child sleeping between two broken people, slowly mending. And outside, in the shadows beyond the station, Krax Grimfang watched with narrowed eyes. He smiled slow and mean. This wasn't over. Not yet. The night was thick with heat and silence. Not even the chrysalids dared to sing. Kaelen lay on the loft floor, one arm draped protectively over Matthew's crib. Below, the fire in the plasma hearth had burned low, casting long, flickering shadows across the station walls. Rosalie sat in her rocking chair, sharpening an energy blade with steady strokes, steel against steel, slow and deliberate. Kaelen couldn't sleep. He kept hearing Krax's voice, coiled like a snake in his thoughts. The digital bounty flyer hadn't just stirred the town. It had awakened something darker. People who once looked the other way now watched with suspicion. Shopkeepers disconnected their comms when Kaelen passed. Kids were pulled indoors. The storm hadn't broken yet, but he could feel it swelling. He climbed down the ladder, boots hitting the floor softly. Rosalie didn't look up. Thought you were asleep. Bad dream woke me. You going to tell me? Kaelen stared into the fire. It ain't the ones where I'm dying that get me. It's the ones where she's still alive, smiling, holding Matthew like none of this ever happened. I wake up thinking I can turn around and she'll be there. Rosalie said nothing for a long while, just kept sharpening that blade, the rhythm comforting in its quiet violence. I used to dream about my boy too, she said finally. In the dreams, he runs through the synthetic cotton fields, his laughs louder than the wind. Then I wake up and there's nothing but silence. She paused. Grief don't lessen, it just changes its shape. Kaelen looked at her. The way the fire caught in her eyes made her seem like something carved from old iron and heartbreak. How do you stand it? By holding what's left and refusing to let the world take more than it already has. He nodded slowly. You're braver than I am. She met his gaze. No, just tired of being afraid. Morning brought no comfort. The sky was a flat, unforgiving gray, and the air held the tension of a drawn weapon. Kaelen rode his sand skimmer out early, taking a circuit around the edge of town, scanning for any sign Krax had left. He hadn't. If anything, Krax had spread his poison farther. The sand skimmer mechanic refused to service Kaelen's ride. The synthetic feed store clerk barely grunted when he asked for energy oats. Everyone knew about the bounty now. He returned to the station with his jaw set and his thoughts spinning. Rosalie was in the garden behind the station, harvesting bio-herbs with practiced hands. Matthew lay in a cradle beside her, shaded by a stitched-together canopy. Kaelen dismounted and approached, glancing around. They're turning, he said quietly. The town, it's happening fast. She didn't stop her work. Krax has a way of rotting things from the inside. He's not going to stop. No, he won't. I should face him. Rosalie looked up sharply. What do you mean? He wants a confrontation. He wants blood. If I don't give it to him, he'll come here. He'll use you or the boy. You're not walking into a trap alone. It's my past. It's our present now. That silenced him. For the first time, the weight he carried didn't feel like his alone. Later that day, Rosalie fetched the peacekeeper, a weary man named Nolan Terra, who had long since traded justice for silence. He arrived with the jingle of his armored spurs and a weariness in his step, glancing at Kaelen with tired eyes. You got half the town spooked, he said, not unkindly. I'm not here for trouble, Kaelen replied, but I'll answer if it comes to me. Nolan scratched his beard. Krax has deep roots, friends in low places. If he pushes this bounty, I won't be able to hold folks off long. Then don't. Just tell me when and where. Rosalie stepped forward. You can't mean to let them lynch him? I don't mean anything, Nolan said, but if you want peace, it might mean leaving. Disappear before the fire starts. Kaelen nodded slowly. I've been running for 3 years. I won't run again. Nolan hesitated, then turned and left, helmet low over his eyes. That night, Kaelen prepared for war. He cleaned his plasma pistol in silence, eyes dark with resolve. Rosalie packed a satchel with supplies, bandages, tinctures, dried synthetic meat, and set it near the station door. Neither spoke of why. Matthew cried once, then fell into deep sleep again, oblivious to the tension rising around him. At midnight, the station door creaked open. Kaelen and Rosalie turned as one, weapons half drawn. But it wasn't Krax. It was the boy. He couldn't have been more than 16, scrawny, with a mop of dust-blonde hair and wide eyes. He held his head in both hands, nervous. My pa, he's with Krax, the boy stammered. They're planning something tonight. They're meeting behind the Cantina. Kaelen stepped forward. Why are you telling me this? The boy looked down. 'Cause Krax is wrong. And my ma says no baby should pay for a grown man's sins. Kaelen nodded. What's your name? Jonah. Thank you, Jonah. Now go home. The boy fled into the night, legs moving faster than his shadow. Rosalie turned to Kaelen. We have to act. Kaelen's voice was cold steel. We will. By 2:00 a.m., the town was asleep or drunk. Kaelen and Rosalie moved like ghosts through the alleys, shadows draped in silence. Behind the Cantina, lantern light flickered, voices murmured, energy weapons gleamed. Kaelen signaled for Rosalie to stay back. He stepped out into the open. Krax turned, grinning. Well, well, the prodigal coward arrives. Kaelen didn't flinch. You want blood, Krax? Here I am. Krax spread his arms. So noble, so predictable. I'm not here for speeches. Let's end it. Krax activated his personal energy projector fast, but Kaelen was faster. A sharp, final energy blast ripped through the night. Krax staggered, clutching his smoking side, shock painted across his face. You shot me. Kaelen stepped forward, plasma pistol still raised. I'm done letting men like you dictate my life. Krax fell to his knees, then collapsed. His men didn't move. Not one of them had drawn. A silence deeper than any energy blast settled over the alley. Rosalie stepped forward, energy pistol in hand, covering the others. You follow him, you end up like him, she said. Or you walk away now. The men looked at one another, then slowly backed off, fading into the darkness one by one. Kaelen holstered his weapon. His hands were steady for the first time in years. They didn't shake. Back at the station, dawn began to rise. Rosalie rocked Matthew in the cradle while Kaelen sat nearby, eyes lost in thought. You did it, she said. No, he replied. We did, she looked at him. What happens now? He smiled faintly. I reckon we see what a new day feels like. Outside, Redemption Hollow stirred, a town changed not by a hero, but by a man who refused to run and a woman who reminded him why he couldn't. And for the first time, the future didn't seem like a place to fear. It felt like home. The morning after the shootout, Redemption Hollow held its breath. Word traveled faster than the wind on the plains. Kaelen had killed Krax Grimfang. Some said it was self-defense. Others whispered it was long overdue. But no one dared look Kaelen in the eye that day. Not out of hate, but out of something more complicated, fear, maybe, respect even. Kaelen didn't care which. He wasn't seeking redemption in this town. He just wanted a place where Matthew could grow up without sleeping under a roof that might burn down before morning. He wanted silence without danger behind it. He wanted peace, not for himself, but for what was left of his world. That peace wouldn't come easy. Rosalie cleaned the station that morning like it were Sunday, humming under her breath as she swept away the remnants of dust and biofluid. Kaelen stood outside watching the sun crawl up over the flat hills. He wasn't wearing his weapon. He knew if anyone wanted to kill him now, they'd try in daylight, and they'd make it count. Inside, Matthew laughed, a gurgling, bubbly sound so pure it could break a man. Kaelen turned at the sound and something deep in his chest softened. It wasn't relief exactly. It was something older, something buried since before his wife had died, love, that didn't come with guilt attached. Rosalie stepped into the light, apron streaked with energy flower. He's teething, Kaelen smiled faintly. Sounds like he's winning the fight. He's stubborn, she said. Gets that from his father. I hope not. I don't want him to grow up always looking over his shoulder. He won't, Rosalie said. Not if we raise him right. The word we caught him off guard. He looked at her, and there was no doubt in her eyes. She meant it, but peace, like anything worth having, had to be earned. By midday, another rider entered town. This one wasn't loud like Krax. He didn't tip his helmet or holler a greeting. He rode straight to the peacekeeper's office, handed over a digital letter, and left without a word. Nolan Terra called for Kaelen before the dust had even settled. You need to see this, the peacekeeper said, holding up the data envelope. It bore the seal of the Galactic Rangers. Kaelen took the data letter, hand steady, and read. He read it twice, then he handed it back and exhaled slowly. Well, Rosalie asked when he returned to the station. They're sending someone to investigate Krax's death. A Marshal. Official review. Damn, she muttered. You think it's trouble? Kaelen nodded. Trouble with a badge. Rosalie didn't flinch. Then we'll meet it head on. 3 days later, Marshal Silas Obsidian arrived. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes like river stone hard, cold, unmoved. He wore his badge like an energy shield and walked like he'd survived worse places than Redemption Hollow could imagine. Kaelen met him on the edge of town. Marshal, he said. Kaelen, the man's voice was dry, clipped. Let's talk. They sat across from one another in the peacekeeper's office. Nolan hovered nearby but said nothing. Obsidian opened a leather-bound data notebook. According to witness reports, you shot Krax Grimfang at close range. Do you confirm that? I do. He activated his energy projector first. He meant to kill me. Obsidian nodded once, not writing anything down. Did you provoke him? No, he came looking for a fight. Were there any threats before this confrontation? Krax posted a bounty on me via public broadcast, got the town stirred up, endangered my son, the woman who took us in, Miss Rosalie. Kaelen's eyes narrowed. Yes, Obsidian's tone remained flat. You understand you're still wanted in some territories for crimes connected to the range dispute. I understand, Kaelen said, but I didn't light that fire, and I saved a boy from it. Obsidian stared at him for a long moment, then closed the data notebook. I believe you, he said, but the law doesn't move on belief. Kaelen stood. Then what's next? I'll file a report, recommend the charges be dropped. But that's not a promise. That's more than I expected. Obsidian looked him in the eye. You don't strike me as a murderer, Kaelen. You strike me as a man trying to live like he ain't got ghosts chasing him. Kaelen nodded. That's about right. The Marshal left that night. By dawn, the weight of judgment had lifted, but the town was still watching. Forgiveness didn't come fast in a place like this. Rosalie took to visiting the town square more often, with Matthew on her hip and her energy rifle slung over her back. She smiled politely, tipped her armored hat, offered greetings. She reminded the people of Redemption Hollow what dignity looked like when it didn't apologize. And slowly they softened. Kaelen took a job fixing energy fences. He worked long days under the sun, returned with cracked hands and dust in his beard. At night, he'd cradle Matthew until the boy fell asleep, then sit beside Rosalie on the porch. You ever think you'd live this long? She asked once. Didn't plan to. You think you deserve it now? He looked at her. I think I need to. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Then you're already ahead of most. But peace was a fragile thing, and some men don't stay dead in spirit even if you put them in the ground. One night, a plasma fire broke out in the General Synthetics store. Flames reached into the sky like screaming energy tendrils. Kaelen was the first there, tossing buckets of fire-suppressant gel with bare hands, choking on smoke. The townsfolk joined. The blaze was put out, but not before half the building was lost. Inside the smoldering wreckage, a message was found, laser-etched into the counter, "Justice never dies." Rosalie stared at it, face pale. You think it's one of Krax's men? Kaelen nodded grimly. He had followers, scared ones, angry ones. Peacekeeper Nolan shook his head. You got rid of the head, but the tail's still thrashing. That night, Kaelen dug up his plasma pistol and cleaned it in silence. Rosalie sat beside him. You leaving? No, he said. I'm drawing a line. We let one more spark catch, and this whole place burns. The next day, Kaelen posted a note in the town square. I won't run. I won't hide. If you've got unfinished business, face me now. No more fires, no more shadows. No one responded. But that night, Rosalie found Kaelen standing over Matthew's crib, watching the boy sleep. I thought you were past all this, she said. I was, Kaelen replied, but I can't protect him by pretending the world's fair. She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him. Then we face it together. A week passed. No more threats, no more fire. Just wind and work and the slow rebuilding of something worth keeping. Then one afternoon, a boy came riding fast from the edge of town. Riders, he shouted. 4 of them, armed. Kaelen stepped outside, calm but ready. Rosalie stood beside him, energy rifle in hand. The riders appeared through the dust, weapons drawn. They stopped at the edge of the field. One dismounted. Kaelen? I am. The man, a Kraken with peeling mottled scales and eyes full of hatred, looked worn, bitter. Krax was my brother. I figured. I want an energy duel. Kaelen didn't blink. We're not doing this in front of my son. Then meet me at the edge of Black Rock, sunset. Kaelen nodded. Alone. That evening, as the sky blazed crimson, Kaelen rode his sand skimmer to Black Rock. The man was already there, pacing. They stood 10 paces apart on the cracked alien stone. No words, just silence and the heavy weight of stored energy. Both activated their personal energy projectors. A blinding flash, followed by a searing hiss of superheated air, tore through the twilight. Kaelen staggered but stayed standing, his personal energy shield flickering. His blast had struck true. The other man, the large Drakon, let out a guttural roar of pain, his armored scales smoking, and he fell, breath escaping in a ragged wheeze. Kaelen approached, leaned down. He wasn't worth dying for, he said. The man's fiery eyes dimmed, but he nodded once before going still. When Kaelen returned to the station, Rosalie ran to meet him, eyes wide. You're hurt, she said, touching his arm where the energy blast had grazed. I'll live. Matthew reached out from her arms, giggling. Kaelen took the boy, held him close. It's over, he whispered. Is it? Kaelen looked around the station, the fields, the rising moon. Rosalie beside him. Matthew in his arms. Yeah, he said. It finally is. And in that quiet, in that peace carved out of chaos and pain, Kaelen stood not as a fugitive, not as a gunfighter, but as a father, a partner, a man remade. The star-forged frontier hadn't broken him, it had tempered him. And for the first time in his life, Kaelen wasn't running. He was home.